All right, let's do the how-to on this logo. So these are the files I'm sending over. So this will be the backer piece. Um, this will be your strip for your 1¼ that goes around for your light bar, for the little light channel. You're going to weld that to the back, so you'll have that. That's your backer, reference kisses. Um, this will be the front face ring. You'll have your little jigs there. And this will be the returns. Look for reference kisses for various marks, and you'll have bend scribes on these guys here. And you'll have your face retainers. These are, so you'll have your inside piece here. This is 3/4. You'll weld that to the inside, and this is 2 3/4. You'll weld that to the outside, and then you'll also have these little jiggies here. You'll cleco these together. The cleco spot, you weld that permanent, and then this side will have 2 holes that line up for screws to the face. So that way you get extra support. So not only will you be screwing this to the returns, but install will be able to hold this retainer together as well from the face. So all right, so going over what we got, there's not a whole lot of parts to it. It's just making sure it all goes together in a certain order and goes together without too much heat until the whole thing is together. The way this thing is, if you put too much heat too soon, it could turn into a big wobbly pizza pie. So we want to make sure we slow, smooth, smooth as fast. So the first thing you're going to do is start with the face ring. Put them together. These are 45 by 90, so obviously they won't fit on your table. So what you want to do is probably just get your table going and then cleco this together. You'll be welding this from the back and then just support it off a blue stands off your table. You want to weld this up. Keep in mind that you want to weld this up really well so it holds this together, and you're never going to get to the back of this. Once you get the returns on and once this gets assembled, you can't get to this side. So you want to make sure that whatever you do to this going forward, make sure you make it count, because you can't go back after that. So so there's the face ring. Get that together. Second step is you're probably going to want to relax all of the return pieces. Anything that's going to be curved, you're going to want to roll. So retainer pieces here, the little 1¼ pieces on the back side here, you're going to want to do that. And then any of these return pieces here, you're going to want to roll those before you bend your 90s here. So you're probably going to want to see if maybe you can dig out, it might be worth it to see if you can dig out the roller and get it out onto the shop floor somewhere where you can manipulate these. You've got this guy coming in at 109. I doubt it'll fit in that cubby back there, and this one also is 109. So this is the little shorty piece at 70. So still, these are big pieces to roll. You're going to want to roll them for sure. So I don't know if you're going to be able to fit back there. Anyway, so once you get those rolled, go ahead and bend up these to 90 here and here. And so once you have this put together and you have these guys bent, then the next step will be to weld these to the face of this. Now you are going to be doing this as a reverse channel letter style. So you'll have your face ring here, right? And it will sit on top of the face like a reverse channel letter. And you're just going to tack it, you know, like you do a reverse channel letter. So you're good to go. So work your way around. And again, what you're going to want to do is set this up on your table and support it off with blue stands and just turn this thing as you go. Start with the 12 o'clock. I have these referenced as the clock face. So I have 12, I have 9, I have 3, and then I have 6. And so it's not imperative that these line up perfectly. They're just to sort of give you an idea to see where they're at. There's a good chance that by the time you get to welding all around, the 6 might not be perfectly aligned. It's not a big deal. The only thing that has to be perfectly aligned is the position of these to what's already on the wall, but that's already figured out. So anyway, so start with 12 o'clock. This is the side you weld to the face. This side with the reference kiss towards the back goes to the back. So make sure that this is on the face and start at the 12 o'clock position, line it up with that, and just start tacking your way around. Now you're going to want to be careful how much heat you put in to start. But you can see where this is where these will land. So once you bend these little ear pieces, then those pieces will be sticking out there like that. So that gives you a place to do a fillet weld when you go to bring in the next piece. So go ahead and weld in your first 12 o'clock piece. And again, I wouldn't put too much heat in it to start until you get all 3 pieces. and then you can go back through and backfill. But again, like I said, once you get all this on here, once you put this to the back, you aren't going to be able to get to this face ever again. So you want to make sure at this stage that you are welding this really well once you have all the pieces on. So put your 12 o'clock piece on and then rotate on your table, and go ahead and put the 3 o'clock piece on, because that has a seam here, and then that way you have a seam here. Leave the smaller piece that doesn't have any bends, leave that for the end, because that way you can either add or shave, do what you got to do to fudge it, but it'll be easier to work with. So this little guy should line up here at 9 o'clock, and it'll go around to 6 on the face here. Now, go ahead and make sure that this dimension is welded very well, just around the face to here. Don't stitch up the seams yet, because the next step is you're going to slide this over the backer. So you want to make sure that these seams have a little bit of room to move, so that way you can slide this over the backer, and you don't want this to tighten up and cinch up so you can't get it around this. So again, go ahead and weld your returns to the face of this, to the back of it. And you can go ahead and put maybe a couple stitch tacks here to just kind of keep it together. But again, don't seal these up yet. So after you get that all done, then you're going to want to bend. You have a single clamp here, and you're going to bend this up 90, and that's going to give you the ability to do a fillet weld right along here. So once that's taken care of, you're going to want to make sure that you weld this decently, but maybe not too much, just enough to hold it together. It's going to be very vulnerable once it comes off the table, but just go ahead and butt seam this. There's no clecos or anything, so you're just going to bend this up, put this on your table, slide it over, maybe use ballasts just to kind of keep things down, and then you're just going to tack this to itself and maybe put some nice welds, keep it lined up. But it is important that this lines up with that just right. Eyeball it just good, because otherwise if it's too off, you could fudge the construction of this, but then these holes won't line up to the wall. So anyway, so you've got your returns welded to this, you have this together. Now what you're going to want to do is build a false floor. So get off the table and go to the shop floor like you've done with the other logos we've made, the big boys. Again, this is 90 inches round. So then go ahead and get some 3x3, or you could even do 2x2, because all you have is 1.5 inches here in the backer, and create a false floor. And you're just going to lay pieces of 3x3 and 2x2 perpendicular to the seam, and put plenty, and make sure they go all the way to the edge as much as possible, but not stick out. So that way when you put the return on, they're not conflicting. But go ahead, and if you have to cut custom pieces, fine. But lay out enough of either 2x or 3x, whatever you use, to support the backer face up on the floor. Then you're going to take this piece that you now have the returns welded to, and you're just going to do your best to slide on the face and returns onto the backer. So the backer will be on the floor with the supports, and you slide it down. Now that will be where the reference kiss comes into effect. Right here, this reference kiss is going to line up with this, and the 3 tabs you've bent will be sort of like a indicator of where this will sit. So you'll have 3 of these. So when you slide it down, the returns faces should be resting on the backer here. That's what this tab is here. So then once you have that, then go ahead and just start tacking your way around. Again, you're going to want to, like House of Pain, you're going to want to jump around. You don't want to jump around too much where you leave gaps, but you don't want to just start in one spot and start welding this like crazy, because this is just going to get warped all crazy. So start at your 12 and start tacking this around as much as you possibly can to keep it together, but leave it to where you'll just work your way back and backfill and just keep it cool as possible, and then work your way around, making sure that the backer lines up with your reference kiss. Once that's done, then you can go ahead and weld really well all of this. Close up the seams, go weld the backer, go ahead and weld the tabs really well. So you want to make sure you get this tab to the backer very well. Make sure all this is stitched up nice. Again, you're not going to be able to get up here anymore, because once you have this backer on, this is non-accessible. So make sure this gets welded really well first. So once you have that all together, Oh, real quick, probably what you want to do is avoid when you go to weld all this together, you're going to be making a lift point. So in this kind of area, maybe start over here and work your way around, weld this whole thing together. But if you can, leave a little like two by two no fly zone, and later you're going to be adding a clip for doing a lift point. So just leave that clean. So anyway, so once all that's done and you have all this welded together, then what I would do is flip it over, and let's see, you're going to do that light channel on the back. Um, all right, yeah, let's reverse real quick. So maybe before you weld this together and before you put anything together, you maybe want to flip this over, because since we're working from the front, there's no way to do a reference kiss on the back. These reference kisses obviously are for LED, but we're going to want a 2-inch scribe line in from this edge, a 2-inch scribe line all the way around. So maybe before you put all this together, take your Starrett and go ahead and reference, or scribe kiss that all the way around at 2 inches in. That will give you a reference mark for this guy. So now that once you have it all together, carefully flip it over onto its face, and since it's on the back, these don't have to be super pretty, but follow your 2-inch line all the way around. These are in 4, and go ahead and just burn that on there, and then that will create that light channel like we did with the tester. So you'll weld that on. Go ahead and weld it. Go ahead and weld it from this side and keep this channel clean. I don't think there's a need to weld on this side for all of this. I think if you weld on this side enough, it's fine. But if you think that you need to, you can weld on this side as well. You just don't want to create too many weld boogers and stuff here for LEDs to fall off. So if we do a lot of welding in here, there could be slag, and then when you go to stick LEDs, they'll fall off. So I was thinking of maybe trying to keep this channel clean by only welding on this side and then only welding in here. But you'll best laid plans. So if you need to weld on both sides, then fine. And then once you have this thing flipped over, it's kind of your call whether you think you might need to lords some 1x1 angle. It can't be any higher than that because it'll poke up higher than this, and you don't want that really. But if you think that you need to reinforce this on the back side, it's kind of your call. I don't think it needs to, as long as make sure nobody stands on this, anything like that. But it just needs to hold itself together. Once it gets on the wall, all of the stress load will be towards the perimeter. So I don't think we need to have this all reinforced, but again, you can make that call once you have it flipped over. So anyway, so once you have that channel done and you have this welded on, then I think you're pretty much good with this. You can flip this back over, and then you can maybe work on the lift point. So the lift point is just going to be a piece of 2x2, either 3/16 or 1/4 inch. There's pieces in the back. I think you can find a chunk. And if you just cut a chunk that's maybe 2x2 by 2, just cut a clip, and then take a 5/8. Most of the leftover lifts eyes we have from Watchfire and stuff are all 5/8. So get a 5/8 aluminum nut, and you're going to go ahead and burn that really good onto that. Go ahead and drill it through first. Get all that set, and then burn that on there. Do your measurement. Do a known measurement over, like a 1 inch. Make it easy on yourself. And then once that's done, then you're just going to measure over from the top here over your 1 inch, drill a hole that's bigger, clearance it nice, and then you're just going to weld that clip in at the very top. That's what I was saying, is maybe do a no-fly zone if you can remember. If not, no big deal. Just grind this real good and maybe grind a couple of the welds out of the way. It's no big deal. But you are going to want to burn this really good all the way around here, and then you're also going to want to burn it real good to the return that if you can reach in there. Get in there and burn it real good to that. So that'll be their lift point if they choose to use that, which I think they probably will. This guy's going to be heavy. And then the last thing you're going to do for this, make sure that this is the last step before it goes out, because it's going to cause a little bit of an issue as far as being in the way, is you're going to cut 4 pieces of 2-inch by 1/8 inch flat bar. and you're going to slide them into the slots at the bottom. So this is how the face is going to be supported. I was going round and around figuring out how to make the bottom retainer piece live its life holding this whole thing up. So this came to me a little bit later. So what you're going to do is slide these in. These are slotted for a little bit bigger than 2x8. Slide them in from the front, and they're going to act like little forklifts. And you have about 3/4 of an inch, maybe a little longer here, sticking out. It shouldn't interfere with these welds. If it does, maybe you trim a little bit. And you will have welds here because you're towards the back here. So slide this in. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just slide it in to where it's up against the welds. And you're going to want to burn this really good. Whatever you can reach in, you're not going to get to the front, but weld it really good here and burn it across the back to these welds, and do all 4 of those. And that will be what the face sits on, and nobody will see that. That way this retainer doesn't have to be doing the job of holding this whole face up its entire life with wind loads and everything else. So that gives a nice positive lift point there. So again, you'll want to do that towards the end of all of this. The rings at this point, you're going to want to just, like I say before, just weld this to his. You're going to want to do the small one first, obviously. Just like reverse channel letter, you're going to put it onto the face and weld it from the side. Do the small one first because you can't get to it once you get this on there. So small one first, big one in the back there. Make sure that these holes are away from the face. The face is on the side farthest from the holes, and those are all pre-drilled for screws all the way around. These are roughly, what are they? Yeah, 17. So we're well within UL. This will be 09. So go ahead and weld those up, and then you're going to want to fit these. You're going to want to get with install to make sure, see what size polycarb we're going to be using. I have this set at 1/4. As you know, polycarb is not, it's going to be 0.177 if we're going to be using 3/16. You're going to, but you're going to basically kind of, once these are all made, you're going to put them on there and try to finesse them and see how they fit and make sure they go together nice. You can talk to install whether they want, I think they want these all pre-fit and pre-drilled to fit on there and get them all on. But again, you want to talk to them to see what material they're using. If they're going to use a 3/16, whether they want this nice and tight up against that, and you want to use a piece, like a dummy piece of a polycarbonate, and then have it touch that polycarbonate. Usually with faces, when we do slide-in faces on monuments, we do a full 1/4, and that way the 0.177 has room to kind of flop around. But because of the nature of this big logo and wind and all that, we might actually want this touching that to sort of clamp it. So get with install, see what they want to do with that, and you might have to, like I say, get some dummy pieces of actual polycarbonate and then sort of set your depth. The way you want to do that is once you get the idea of how far this needs to be, then measure from here to this point here, and then set your scribe, and then go ahead and make a scribe line all the way around, and that way that scribe line will line up with the holes on this, and you'll be able to eyeball your level. So once you kind of get the idea of how far you want this to be away, if you want this touching, or even if you try to put a little pressure where it's kind of clamping it, then get that measurement from here on the can to where that hole is, and then get rid of your retainer. And like I say, just go all the way around, scribe it from the face, and then that will give you a nice line to line up all your holes with, and you can drill all your holes. And then just make sure everything meets up nice, and make sure it looks clean, and they'll take care of all that in the field. So that takes care of that. All right, so as far as the size of the face, since this thing is so big, obviously we're going to be cutting it by hand. So we're going to be out there on the driveway. So let's see. Just to get an idea though, things 90 inches to start, and if we were to cut it like in the morning when it's already 90 degrees, and with the dark vinyl, we'll probably get up to 160 degrees. So if we're dealing with polycarbonate, it could grow as much as a 1/4 inch. So you're going to need at least an 1/8 inch all the way around just to start, and then probably another 1/4 inch just to be safe. So you might be looking at 89.5, something like that, overall diameter of the circle of the face, just to give yourself room for expansion. But like I say, according to this, you could be pushing close to a 1/4 inch of growth from 90 to 160. Now in the winter time, it could shrink the opposite of that. So your total growth from, if you were to cut it when it was actually cooler, or let's say from freezing day all the way to that, you have almost that much growth, almost a ½ inch of growth between the coldest and the hottest. So, again, you want to make sure you cut this with plenty of gap, but not too much where it'll slide out. As far as your LED layout, it's going to be 2 circuits. You're going to have the outer ring. I have these set up at 7 inches on center. So with a 5-inch face, 5 inches away, 7 inches on center. We've had usually pretty good success with that. So your outermost ring and the ring on the back side will be 1 circuit. So your ring on the back side is 22 feet. Your ring on the front side is 20 feet. And then all the rest of the rings on the inside will be 1 circuit. So when you wire it up, that's what you got. You'll bring it to the collection point here. So all of these will be 1. This guy and the other guy would be in back. I have no holes for that. So once you get that other one laid out, shoot for this power area, and then you're going to shoot your own hole and bring that in and collect it with this. So you'll have 2 circuits ready for them to wire up for the north, or for the logo there. So I think that should do it. Any other questions, you hit me up. So I think that should do it.